I didn't want to die in public. It was rude, but the marble floor of Grand Central was tilting, and the darkness creeping in from the edges of my vision felt warmer than the December air biting through the station doors. My mop dragged across the same 3-foot section of marble for the 4th time. The motion was automatic now, arms moving while my brain tried to remember why I was standing. 4 hours into a 6-hour off-book shift, $60 cash, no questions asked. That was the deal with the night supervisor who looked the other way when ghosts like me showed up for work that didn't officially exist. I caught my reflection in the polished brass of a directory kiosk. Hollow eyes and a gaunt face. When had my cheekbones become that sharp? The infected gash on my left cheek throbbed with my heartbeat, hot and angry beneath the bandage I'd fashioned from stolen gauze. The fever made everything feel distant, like I was watching someone else's life through thick glass. The white maintenance uniform hung off a frame that had shed 20 pounds in 8 weeks. I'd stopped looking at the scale. Stopped looking at much of anything, really. Easier to keep your head down, your hands busy, your presence invisible. The circle taught me that lesson with the brand on my cheek and the bruises that never quite faded from the crooks of my elbows. My fingers ached as I gripped the mop handle. Not from work, but from something deeper. The bone-deep exhaustion of a body consuming itself for fuel. When had I last eaten? Yesterday morning, maybe. 3 crackers stolen from the staff break room. My stomach had stopped growling 2 days ago, replaced by a hollow numbness I'd learned to ignore. The Christmas lights strung across the terminal's vaulted ceiling blurred and doubled. Pretty. I used to love Christmas at Grand Central. Back when I was Rachel Spencer, 3rd-year medical student, future doctor, girl with a future. Before I became a ghost haunting the maintenance tunnels. Before I learned exactly how much a pint of blood was worth to certain people. I pressed my palm against my forearm, feeling the heat radiating from beneath my skin. The spot where they'd taken blood that morning was hot, swollen, angry. I should clean it properly. Should do a lot of things. Should run. Should disappear. Should stop thinking about should, and focus on surviving the next 5 minutes. The station doors opened again. December wind sliced through the terminal, carrying snow and the scent of the city. I shivered. Violent, uncontrollable tremors that made the mop clatter against the floor. Just cold. Just tired. Just finish the shift, Rachel. Collect the money. Find somewhere warm to sleep that isn't the tunnels. Then the crowd changed. I'd learned to read crowds working nights at Grand Central. The late commuters moved in chaotic patterns, everyone in their own world, brushing past each other with New York indifference. But this was different. This was water parting around a stone. This was silence dropping over noise like a heavy curtain. I looked up. He moved through the terminal like gravity itself bent to accommodate him. Tall, over 6 feet even at this distance. Dressed in black that made the shadows cling to him like they belonged there. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Beautiful in the way sharp things are beautiful. Dangerous. But it was the ink that marked him as something other. Tattoos crawled up from the collar of his black shirt. Intricate patterns that wrapped around his throat like fingers. I'd seen enough underworld ink during my clinical rotations in the ER to recognize a crime family mark. But this wasn't Italian or Russian. This was something else. Korean. Maybe. Elegant. Lethal. The crowd parted wider. Even the police officers near the ticket windows looked away. That kind of power, the kind that made authority itself flinch, wasn't earned through fear alone. It was inherited, cultivated, fed with blood and brutality, until it became as natural as breathing. His entourage followed. 3 men in dark suits, moving with the coordinated precision of trained killers trying to look like businessmen. One spoke into his sleeve. Another scanned the terminal with eyes that cataloged threats in microseconds. The third kept his hand inside his jacket, ready. I needed to move. Needed to get out of his path. Fade into the background like I'd been taught. Maintenance workers were furniture. Seen but not noticed. Stay invisible. Stay safe. My legs had other plans. The first step was wrong. My knee buckled, unlocking like a hinge with a missing pin. I caught myself on the mop handle, knuckles stiff. The terminal spun. Not the gentle sway of exhaustion, but a violent tilting, like the whole building had been knocked off its foundation. Gray crept in from the edges of my vision, tunnel vision. The medical term popped into my head with detached clinical clarity. Sign of shock. Hypovolemic, probably. Blood pressure dropping. Heart rate compensating. Body shutting down non-essential systems to protect the core. I was going to faint. Not here. Not now. Not in front of him. My knees unlocked completely. The mop clattered to the marble. I fell, and didn't hit the ground. Strong arms caught me mid-collapse, pulling me against a chest that felt like granite wrapped in expensive wool. My head lolled against fabric that smelled nothing like the tunnels. Cedar, leather, something warm and masculine and completely foreign to the life I'd been living. "I've got you." The voice was deep, quiet, with the faintest trace of an accent that softened the edges of his English. Korean, definitely, but educated abroad, the kind of voice that commanded rooms without raising its volume. I tried to speak, to apologize, to explain that I was fine and didn't need help, but my tongue was thick in my mouth, my body unresponsive. Through half-closed eyes I saw him. Sharp features, eyes so dark they swallowed light. A face that belonged on ancient warrior paintings, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. The tattoos continued under his collar. I could see the edge of symbols I couldn't read, intricate patterns that marked him as something powerful, something feared. He adjusted his hold, one arm under my knees, the other supporting my back. His hand brushed my forearm, the one with the fresh needle mark, and I felt him go absolutely still. The world narrowed to that point of contact. His fingers, warm against my fever-hot skin. The moment his thumb grazed, the swollen puncture wound hidden beneath my sleeve. Then he pushed the fabric up. I tried to pull away, but I had no strength. Could only watch as he exposed the evidence I'd been hiding for months. The needle marks, the bruising in distinct patterns. 4 oval marks the color of old wine, finger-shaped, unmistakable. And beneath them, the older scars, track marks that looked like drug abuse but told a different story to anyone who knew what to look for. His entire body went rigid, those dark eyes fixed on my arm with an intensity that should have terrified me. But there was no confusion in his gaze, no curiosity, recognition, like he'd seen this before, like he knew exactly what those marks meant, what they represented, who made them. His jaw clenched. The tattoos on his throat shifted as he swallowed. When he looked up at the crowd, at the commuters pretending not to watch, his face had transformed. The beautiful brutality became just brutal, a predator identifying prey. He was scanning for someone. The handlers, the ones who always watched to make sure their vessel didn't run. Who did this? His voice had changed. Still quiet, but there was steel underneath now. Something ancient and dangerous lurking beneath the civilized surface. The kind of rage that burned cold instead of hot. I pulled weakly at my sleeve, trying to cover the evidence. Muscle memory. Hide it. Deny it. Survive. "I'm fine. Just clumsy." I fell at. "You fell." He didn't believe me. The way he said it made clear he knew I was lying. His hand moved to my face, fingers gentle as they tilted my chin. His thumb brushed the edge of my bandage. "And this?" He pulled the gauze aside. I watched his face as he saw the brand, the infected, jagged scar that marked me as property. The Korean symbol burned into my cheek with a heated blade. His expression went absolutely cold, not angry, beyond anger, a kind of lethal calm that made my blood run ice cold despite the fever. "Vessel," he murmured in Korean. Then louder, to someone behind him, "Bring the car. Now. Wait." I tried to push away from him, to stand on my own. I can't. I don't even know you. My name is Kim Gunwoo." He said it like it should mean something, like the name itself carried weight. When I just stared blankly, something that might have been approval flickered in those dark eyes. "And right now, what you need is medical attention, food, and somewhere safe to recover. I can provide all 3. I have to." My voice cracked. "I have to go back. If they realize I'm gone, they already know. He started walking, carrying me like I weighed nothing. They're watching right now, which means you can't go back. The terminal blurred as he moved. I saw his men forming a protective barrier around us, hands inside jackets, eyes scanning the crowd with lethal focus. The commuters parted like water, instinctively giving space to violence barely leashed. "This is kidnapping," I mumbled against his shoulder, too exhausted to fight. "This is theft." His arms tightened around me. "You were stolen first. I'm simply stealing you back." Cold air hit us as we exited onto 42nd Street. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted so dark they looked like solid sheets of obsidian. One of his men opened the door. Gunwoo slid inside, still holding me. The door closed. The world outside became muffled, distant. Inside smelled like leather and danger and something else. Safety, maybe. The kind I'd forgotten existed. He settled me on the seat beside him, his hand steady on my shoulder. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." Safe. The word felt foreign. When was the last time I'd felt safe? Before the circle. Before Officer Cole. Before I learned that my rare blood type was worth more than my medical degree. "Where are we going?" My voice was barely a whisper. "My home." He pulled his jacket off and draped it over my shivering shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body heat, impossibly soft. "I have doctors. They'll treat the infection, the malnutrition, His jaw clenched again as he looked at my branded cheek. "Everything." Why? The question hung between us. Why would a man who looked like walking death itself save someone like me? What did he want? His hand moved to my face, thumb tracing the air beside my bandage without touching. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but there was something underneath. Something personal, because I recognized the mark, and I thought I'd burned that operation to the ground 2 years ago. The SUV pulled into traffic. Through the window, I watched Grand Central disappear behind us. The terminal where I'd been invisible, the tunnels where I'd been hiding, the life I'd been barely surviving. "They'll come for me," I whispered. "The circle always collects what's theirs. Let them." Kim Gunwoo's dark eyes met mine, and for the first time since I'd become a ghost, I saw something more terrifying than my captors. I saw war. "I've been looking for an excuse to finish what I started. You just gave me one." The city lights blurred past the tinted windows as we drove into the unknown. I should have been terrified. Every survival instinct screamed that I'd just traded one monster for another. But as Gunwoo's jacket warmed my shaking body, as his steady presence filled the space beside me, I couldn't find the fear I knew I should feel. Maybe I was too tired to be afraid. Or maybe, just maybe, the monster who caught me was different from the ones who'd broken me. Welcome back, my survivors and shadow dwellers. Before we descend into the tunnels, make sure you've sworn your loyalty, hit that subscribe button, press like to seal the pact, and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I want to see just how far our syndicate reaches tonight, from the penthouses to the underground. Every click, every comment, every bit of devotion you show helps us keep these dangerous secrets alive and these forbidden bloodlines flowing. So find your sanctuary, lock the doors, and prepare for the cold. Let's begin. I woke to silk, not the rough institutional cotton of hospital sheets, and definitely not the mildewed blanket I'd been using in the tunnels. This was the kind of fabric that whispered against skin, cool and impossibly soft, like water made solid. My eyes opened to darkness, but it was the wrong kind of darkness. Not the oppressive black of underground spaces, but something deeper, more intentional. Heavy curtains blocked what I sensed was daylight beyond. The air smelled clean, antiseptic, sharp, but underneath it, something else. Cedar, leather, the same scent that had wrapped around me in the SUV. His scent. Panic should have hit immediately. Instead, my body registered comfort first. The absence of cold, of hunger pangs, of the constant low-grade terror that had become my baseline. The fever that had been consuming me felt distant, muted. An IV line ran into my left arm, the tape securing it applied with medical precision. I tried to sit up. My muscles screamed protest, weak and shaky, but functional, better than they'd been in weeks. How long had I been unconscious? The room materialized as my eyes adjusted. Minimalist, expensive, floor-to-ceiling windows hidden behind blackout curtains, furniture that looked like it belonged in an architectural magazine. All clean lines and dark wood. A single piece of art on the wall, a traditional Korean ink painting of a tiger, its eyes seeming to follow movement even in the dimness. This wasn't a hospital. This was someone's home, his home. The door opened without warning. No knock, no announcement, just the smooth click of a lock disengaging, and then he was there, filling the doorway like he filled every space, with presence that felt almost physical. Kim Gunwoo looked different in natural light filtering around the curtain's edges, less like a walking shadow, more like a man, but no less dangerous. He wore black slacks and a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing forearms corded with muscle and wrapped in more of that intricate ink. The tattoos continued up his arms in patterns that seemed to tell a story I couldn't read. His dark eyes found mine immediately, and I felt the weight of that gaze like a hand pressed to my chest. "You're awake." His voice was quieter than I remembered, almost gentle. "Don't try to move too quickly. You've been unconscious for 36 hours. 36 hours. A day and a half stolen from my life. Where am I? My home. Manhattan. The penthouse." He moved into the room with fluid grace, each step deliberate. "You needed medical care. I provided it." I looked at the IV, at the medical equipment on the nightstand that I hadn't registered before. A blood pressure cuff, syringes still in sterile packaging. This wasn't just a bedroom. It was a private medical suite. "The circle," my voice cracked. "They'll find me. They always find. They won't." He stopped at the foot of the bed, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but eyes intense. "This building has security that makes Fort Knox look accessible. No one enters without my permission. No one." The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it highlighted a different problem. I'd escaped one cage only to wake in another. A prettier cage, certainly, but the door was still locked. "I need to go." I reached for the IV, fingers clumsy against the tape. "You need to stay still." He moved fast, faster than someone his size should move, crossing the distance between us in 2 strides. His hand caught my wrist, stopping me without hurting. His skin was warm against mine, the touch sending an unwelcome jolt of awareness through my exhausted body. "You pull that out before the doctor clears you, and you'll bleed. You don't have blood to spare." I tried to jerk away. His grip didn't tighten, but it didn't release either. We stayed frozen like that, his hand circling my wrist, my pulse hammering against his fingers. Could he feel it? The way my heart rate had spiked, not from fear but from something more complicated. "Let me go." I hated how weak my voice sounded. "No." Simple. Final. He released my wrist but didn't step back. This close, I could see details I'd missed in Grand Central. The faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. The way his pupils dilated slightly when he looked at my face, the muscle ticking in his jaw. "Not until you're strong enough to survive on your own. And right now, Rachel Spencer, you are nowhere close." Hearing my full name from his lips sent ice down my spine. "How do you—" "I know everything." He finally stepped back, giving me space to breathe. "Medical student. Johns Hopkins. 3rd year before you dropped out 8 months ago. No missing persons report filed. No family searching. You became a ghost by choice before the circle made it permanent." The clinical recitation of my life's collapse should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in months. Not as a vessel, not as a body to be used, but as a person with a history, with a name. "Why do you care?" The question came out sharper than intended. "What do you want from me?" His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "I want to know who did this. Names, locations, everything. So you can what? Start a war?" I laughed, the sound bitter. "I'm nobody. I'm not worth—" "Don't." The word cracked like a whip. He leaned forward, hands braced on the footboard of the bed, and the intensity in his gaze pinned me in place. Don't tell me what you're worth. The people who hurt you don't get to define your value. Before I could respond, another knock interrupted. This one was polite, waiting for acknowledgement. Come in, Gunwoo called, not looking away from me. An older man entered, gray-haired and professionally dressed, carrying a medical bag that had seen significant use. He took one look at the tension between us and cleared his throat diplomatically. Mr. Kim, I'm ready to examine the patient, if you'll allow me. Gunwoo straightened but didn't leave. Just moved to stand by the window, arms crossed, watching. The message was clear. I could be examined, but not alone, not unprotected. The doctor approached with practiced calm. I'm Dr. Han. I've been monitoring your condition since you arrived. How are you feeling? Tired, weak. I watched him snap on latex gloves, confused. All normal, given your state. He checked the IV, then wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my upper arm. The Velcro rip was loud in the quiet room. Your blood pressure was dangerously low when you arrived. We've been giving you fluids and electrolytes to stabilize you. The cuff tightened, released. He frowned at the reading. Still low, but improving. I need to examine your arms. May I? I wanted to refuse. Wanted to keep my shame hidden under the long sleeves of whatever hospital gown they'd dressed me in. But Dr. Han's eyes were kind, and Gunwoo's presence by the window felt like a shield rather than a threat. I nodded. Dr. Han pushed up my right sleeve first. His sharp intake of breath told me he saw what I knew was there. The landscape of abuse mapped on my skin. Fresh needle marks, barely scabbed. Older ones, yellowed and purple, and beneath it all, the finger-shaped bruises that never quite faded. How often? He asked quietly. Every 10 days, sometimes sooner. They gave me iron infusions afterward to keep my heart from stopping, just so they could drain me again. He moved to the left arm. This one was worse. The puncture wound from yesterday morning was angry and swollen, heat radiating from the infection spreading beneath my skin. Doctor, Han touched the area gently, and I flinched. This is badly infected. Sepsis is a real risk. He looked up at Gunwoo. She needs aggressive antibiotic therapy. If this doesn't respond in 24 hours, we'll need to consider IV antibiotics in a hospital setting. No hospitals. Gunwoo's voice was firm. Too many questions, too many records. Treat her here. Dr. Han hesitated, then nodded. He pulled out his stethoscope, warming it against his palm before placing it against my chest. Deep breath. I obeyed, feeling the cold metal through the thin gown. He moved it across my chest, listening to my heart, my lungs. His frown deepened. Tachycardia. Your heart is working too hard, and I'm hearing some concerning sounds in your lungs. He pulled back, meeting my eyes. When did you last eat a full meal? The question shouldn't have been hard to answer, but as I tried to remember, I realized I couldn't. Days blurred together in the tunnels, stolen crackers, a half-eaten sandwich from a trash can. Nothing that qualified as a meal. I don't know, I admitted. Doctor. Han looked at Gunwoo. Severe malnutrition. Her body is consuming itself for energy, muscle wasting, likely vitamin deficiencies, and given the tremors I'm observing, possibly hypoglycemia. Fix it. Gunwoo's voice allowed no argument. It's not that simple. Dr. Han began repacking his bag. Her digestive system has been essentially dormant. We need to reintroduce food slowly, or we risk refeeding syndrome, which can be fatal. Small amounts, every 2 hours. Bland, easily digestible. I'll handle the food, Gunwoo interrupted. You handle the infection and the blood work. Blood work. The phrase made my stomach clench. What blood work? Dr. Han paused, glancing at Gunwoo as if asking permission. Gunwoo gave a single nod. We need to understand exactly what's been done to you. Dr. Han explained gently. A complete blood count, metabolic panel, infectious disease screening, and, he hesitated. We need to determine how much blood volume you've actually lost. Why does that matter? This time, it was Gunwoo who answered. Because I need to know if what I saw in that terminal was attempted murder or just criminal negligence. The coldness in his voice made me shiver despite the warm room. Dr. Han drew the blood quickly, professionally, labeling vials with practiced efficiency. When he reached for my face, I jerked back instinctively. "I need to look at the wound on your cheek," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." But his hands reaching for my face felt too much like other hands, violent hands, holding me down while the brand burned into my skin. I couldn't stop the whimper that escaped. Gunwoo was there instantly, kneeling beside the bed, positioning himself in my line of sight. "Look at me." His voice was different now, not commanding but grounding. Just at me, not him, me. I focused on his face. On the scar through his eyebrow, the sharp line of his jaw, the tattoos disappearing under his collar. Anything but the hands near my face. "That's it," Gunwoo murmured. "Just keep your eyes on me." I felt the bandage peel away, felt the cool air hit the infected wound. Dr. Han's touch was gentle, but I gripped the sheets hard enough to hurt. Gunwoo reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and rested his hand over mine. Not grabbing, not restraining, just there, an anchor. "This is very infected, Doctor," Han said. "And the scarring. This was deliberate, precise. Someone knew exactly how deep to cut to leave a permanent mark without causing immediate mortality." "Can you read it?" Gunwoo asked. "It's Korean, the character for vessel or container. She's been branded as property." "Doctor." Han's voice shook with barely suppressed rage. "Whoever did this is a medical professional. They understand anatomy, scarification techniques. This isn't street violence. This is calculated torture." The room fell silent. I could feel Gunwoo's hand tighten fractionally over mine, the only sign of his reaction. "Clean it," he said finally. "Make it as painless as possible. Then tell me how long until the results are ready. The blood work will take a few hours if I rush it through my private lab." Dr. Han began applying something cool to my cheek. Antibiotic ointment, probably. "But Mr. Kim, I need to be clear about something." "Speak." "This young woman is in critical condition. Not immediate danger, but close. Her body has been systematically drained and abused for months. Malnutrition, chronic blood loss, untreated infections, psychological trauma." He applied a fresh bandage with careful precision. "She needs rest, proper nutrition, and safety. If she's subjected to any additional stress or harm, her body will simply shut down. Do you understand?" "I understand." Gunwoo's thumb traced an absent pattern over my knuckles. "She won't be harmed again. I give you my word." "Your word means something, Doctor," Han acknowledged. "But I'm not worried about you harming her directly. I'm worried about what happens when whoever owns her comes looking. Because they will come looking. Let them." Gunwoo's voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made the hair on my arm stand up. "I'll be waiting." Dr. Han packed up his supplies, gave me a last concerned look, and left with instructions about antibiotic timing and feeding schedules. The door clicked shut behind him. And then it was just me and the man who'd stolen me from my captors. Gunwoo released my hand but didn't stand. Just stayed, kneeling beside the bed, eye level with me, close enough that I could see gold flecks in his dark irises. "Rachel." My name sounded different in his accent. Slightly softened. "I need you to tell me everything. Who branded you? Who takes your blood? Where they keep you? Everything. Why?" I searched his face for the angle, the trap. Everyone wanted something. "You don't know me. I'm nobody to you. So why do you care?" His hand lifted slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers traced the air beside the fresh bandage on my cheek. Not quite touching, but close enough that I felt the heat of his skin. "Because I recognized the mark," he said quietly. "And I thought I'd burned that operation to the ground 2 years ago." The words hit me like a physical blow. You know about the circle? I know about all of it." His jaw clenched. "The blood harvesting. The forced donations. The branding of vulnerable people to mark them as livestock. I found one of their facilities 2 years ago. I burned it. I killed everyone inside. I thought I'd ended it." "You killed?" I couldn't process it. This man, kneeling beside my bed with gentle hands and careful words, was casually admitting to mass murder. They deserved it, he said simply. And apparently, I didn't finish the job. Because you're here, which means someone survived. Someone rebuilt. His eyes met mine, and I saw something that looked like guilt beneath the rage. Someone I missed is doing this to you. That makes it my fault. That's insane. You didn't. I did. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window, hands shoved in his pockets. I thought I was thorough. I thought I'd cut out the cancer. But I left a piece behind, and it grew back, and it found you. He turned, backlit by the curtain-filtered light. So yes, Rachel, I care, because your suffering is my failure. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process a crime lord with a conscience, a killer with guilt, a monster who looked at my branded face with something that almost looked like tenderness. The blood work, I said instead. Why does it matter so much? What are you looking for? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. Dr. Han will run a full panel. Blood type, antibodies, any markers that might tell us who wanted your blood specifically. Some people, he paused, choosing words carefully, have rare blood types, valuable blood types, types that could keep certain people alive. Something in his tone made my skin prickle. What aren't you telling me? Nothing yet. I don't deal in speculation. He moved back toward the bed. But when those results come back, we'll both know more. Until then, you rest, you eat, you heal, and then you help me burn the circle to ash, properly this time. His smile was a predator's smile, beautiful and terrifying. You give me names, and I give you revenge. Revenge. The word should have appealed to me, should have ignited something fierce and righteous, but I was too tired, too broken, too afraid that revenge was just another word for death. I'm not brave, I whispered. I'm not strong enough to fight them. You're alive. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that his body heat reached me through the covers. After 8 months of systematic torture designed to break you, you're still breathing, still fighting. That's not weakness, Rachel. That's steel. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to feel like the survivor he saw instead of the victim I knew I was. But belief required energy I didn't have. I'm tired, I admitted. So tired. Then sleep. He stood, adjusting the IV drip with practiced familiarity. I'll be here when you wake. Why? He paused at the door, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Because ghosts shouldn't have to haunt the dark alone. Then he was gone, and I was alone with silk sheets and questions that felt more dangerous than the answers could possibly be. The next time I woke, the curtains were open. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a view of Manhattan that looked like a postcard. I could see Central Park from here, a rectangle of green in the urban jungle. This wasn't just a penthouse. This was the kind of residence that appeared in lifestyle magazines with captions like, "How the Other Half Lives." I sat up slowly, testing my body's response. Still weak, but the fog had lifted. The fever that had been my constant companion felt muted, manageable. My head was clear for the first time in weeks. The IV was gone from my arm, replaced by a small bandage over the puncture site. Someone had changed it while I slept. Someone had also changed my hospital gown for actual pajamas. Black silk, expensive, sized perfectly. The intimacy of that made my face heat. Whose hands had undressed me? Dressed me? Had Gunwoo seen? You're blushing. I jerked toward the voice. Gunwoo sat in a chair by the window, so still I'd missed him entirely. He wore different clothes. Charcoal slacks, black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing more of the tattoos that seemed to cover most of his torso. His hair was damp, like he'd recently showered. He looked less like a mob boss and more like a dangerous piece of art. I didn't see you there, I managed. I noticed. He stood, moving with that same fluid grace, and approached carrying something I hadn't noticed. A tray. Dr. Han said you could start solid food. I made juke. Juke? Korean rice porridge. He set the tray on the bedside table, then began arranging pillows behind me with surprising gentleness. bland, easily digestible, traditional sick food. You made it? I couldn't hide my surprise. His mouth quirked in something that might have been amusement. I'm Korean. Of course I can make juk. My Halmione would rise from her grave and beat me with a wooden spoon if I couldn't. The image of this terrifying man being threatened by his grandmother made something ease in my chest. A reminder that he was human, not just a collection of danger and darkness. He settled back in his chair, watching as I stared at the bowl. It smelled incredible. Ginger, sesame oil, something savory and comforting that made my stomach clench with desperate hunger. Dr. Han said small amounts, Gunwoo reminded me. No more than half the bowl, even if you're still hungry. Too much too fast will make you sick. I picked up the spoon with shaking hands. The first bite was heaven. Warm, soft, flavorful in a subtle way that didn't overwhelm my ravaged system. I had to force myself to eat slowly when every instinct screamed to devour it all. Gunwoo watched in silence. Not uncomfortable silence, but something almost companionable, like he was content to simply witness my survival. The pajamas, I said between careful bites. Who? I had my assistant purchase them. She dressed you while Dr. Han was present. He said it matter-of-factly. Your clothes from the terminal were destroyed. They were contaminated with your blood and infection. You'll need a full wardrobe. My assistant will handle it. I can't afford. You're not being asked to pay. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. While you're under my protection, your needs are my responsibility. That includes clothing, medical care, food, and safety. Non-negotiable. Under his protection. The phrase should have felt like a collar. Instead, it felt like the first deep breath I'd taken in months. How long? I asked. How long are you planning to keep me here? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He stood, moving to the window, hands in his pockets. The blood work came back this morning. My spoon froze halfway to my mouth. And he was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city like it held answers. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Your blood type is AB negative, H null variant. I frowned. That's not possible. I'm O positive. It's on my medical records from Hopkins. Those records are wrong. Or fabricated. He turned to face me. Arch null is the rarest blood type in the world. Less than 50 known cases globally. Universal donor for any Arch blood type. Incredibly valuable to certain people with rare blood diseases. The room felt colder suddenly. What are you saying? I'm saying someone knew what you were before you did. Someone tested you, discovered what you carried, and decided you were worth more as a resource than as a person. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. And I'm saying that blood type is a familial marker. Whoever has it passed it through generations, bloodlines. My mind was racing. So whoever needs my blood is likely family, or was supposed to have exclusive access to family donors. He moved closer, his presence filling my vision. Rachel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you remember anything about your biological parents? Were you adopted? Foster care? My hand trembled, and I set the spoon down before I dropped it. My mother died when I was 3. Overdose. I barely remember her. My father wasn't in the picture. I grew up in foster care until I aged out at 18. Why does that matter? His jaw clenched. Because that blood type doesn't just appear randomly. It's genetic, specific, and there's only one family in New York that carries it. He paused, and I could see him weighing his words. Mine. The world tilted. What? My family. The Kim bloodline. We carry Rh null variants. His voice was level, but his eyes were intense. My father has it. I have it. My grandfather had it. And now you have it. I shook my head, trying to process. That's impossible. I'm not Korean. I'm not. Your mother. He cut me off. What was her name? Jessica Spencer. She was. I tried to remember the few details I knew. Black, beautiful. That's what the social workers told me. I barely remember her. And your father? I don't know. My mother never listed him on the birth certificate. Gunwoo pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. After a moment, he turned the screen toward me. A photograph. Old, grainy, but clear enough. A young Korean man in an expensive suit standing next to a black woman. She was beautiful, laughing, her hair in box braids, her hand on his arm, and she looked exactly like every photograph I'd seen of my mother. "That's my great-uncle," Gunwoo said quietly. "Kim Jun-ho. He disappeared in New York in 1952. He fell in love with a black woman in Harlem. Your great-grandmother. My family didn't approve. They erased him from the records, pretended he never existed." He paused. "That was 3 generations ago. But the bloodline didn't end. It just went dormant until it reached you." I couldn't breathe. "You're saying I'm blood." The word landed like a bomb. "You are the last descendant of that lost branch, Rachel. We are strangers by culture, separated by decades, but you carry the genetic legacy my father needs. He isn't draining a niece. He's harvesting a distant relative like a spare part." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the mattress, trying to anchor myself to something solid as my entire understanding of reality shifted. "That's why they took me," I whispered. "Not because I was random. Because I'm blood." Gunwoo's voice was harsh. "You're Kim blood. Rare. Valuable. That's why I had to be the one to stabilize you yesterday. Doctor, Han couldn't use the blood bank. I had to hook my own vein to yours just to keep your heart beating. The perfect donor for the family patriarch who's dying of leukemia and needs regular transfusions to survive." He moved closer, and I could see rage simmering beneath his control. "My father took you. My family branded you. And his voice cracked slightly. "I've been paying the man who delivered you to them every week." The pieces clicked into place. Officer Cole, the circle, the systematic draining. It wasn't random human trafficking. It was a family business, a patriarch keeping himself alive by consuming his own bloodline. "I'm going to be sick." I barely got the words out before Gunwoo moved, grabbing a wastebasket and holding it while I dry heaved. Nothing came up. My stomach was too empty. But the retching wouldn't stop. He rubbed my back with one hand, the touch surprisingly gentle for someone capable of such violence. When the spasms finally stopped, he offered me water from the nightstand. "Small sips," he instructed. I obeyed, tasting bile and horror. "Your father, the chairman, he's been torturing family." "Yes." Gunwoo took the water glass back, setting it aside. 2 years ago, I thought I'd killed him. Staged a coup, took control of the organization, exiled him to South Korea with nothing. I thought he was too weak to survive, too proud to crawl back. His laugh was bitter. I underestimated his will to live. He came back, rebuilt his operation in secret, and when he needed donors, he took what he thought was his by blood. Why didn't he just ask me? The question sounded absurd even as I asked it. If I'm family, if he needed. Because you are the anomaly. Gunwoo's voice was cold. My father is obsessed with blood purity. He believes the Ray-Null variant belongs only to the main line, finding it in you. A black woman, 3 generations removed from the family name, offended his sense of order. He doesn't see you as family, Rachel. He sees you as a genetic theft. Taking your blood isn't just survival to him. It's reclaiming what he thinks belongs to the Kims. I thought I'd run out of tears months ago, but they came anyway, hot and angry, spilling down my cheeks. Gunwoo let me cry, his presence solid and unchanging beside the bed. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I'm sorry you're caught in our family's sickness. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry," his voice roughened, "that my blood is the reason yours was stolen." Through the tears, I looked at him, really looked, saw the guilt carved into every line of his face, the rage burning beneath his control, the determination that felt almost violent in its intensity. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" He stood, straightening to his full height, and for a moment he looked exactly like what he was. A king in his domain, a killer with purpose. "Now I call a family meeting. I introduce you as Minho's daughter, the rightful Kim heir. And I watch my father's face when he realizes I know exactly what he's been doing. And then, his smile was a terrible, beautiful thing. Then I finish what I started 2 years ago, properly this time. He moved toward the door, then paused. There's a panic button on the nightstand. Press it if you need anything. My men are stationed outside your door. You're safe here. Gunwoo. He stopped at the sound of his name. Thank you. I gestured vaguely at the room, the food, the care. For all of this, he looked back at me, and for just a moment, the dangerous crime lord disappeared, replaced by something achingly human. Your family, Rachel. We take care of our own. His voice softened. Even when that family failed you first. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the truth that felt heavier than any cage. I'd been tortured by my own blood, and saved by it too. 3 days passed in the gilded prison of Gunwoo's penthouse. 3 days of careful meals, supervised by Dr. Han. 3 days of healing, physical, at least. The infection in my arm retreated under aggressive antibiotic therapy. The fever broke completely. Color returned to my skin, and with it, strength to my muscles. But healing brought clarity, and clarity brought fear. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city wake up below. 15 stories down, people moved like ants through Manhattan streets. Purposeful, oblivious, free. I pressed my palm against the glass, feeling its coolness, testing its solidity. Beautiful cages were still cages. Behind me, the door opened. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Gunwoo's presence had become familiar over these days. The quiet confidence of his movements, the cedar leather scent that preceded him, the way the air itself seemed to shift when he entered a room. You're up early, he observed. Couldn't sleep. I kept my eyes on the street below. Is this how it's going to be? Beautiful room. Gourmet meals. Guards at my door. A prisoner treated well is still a prisoner. His reflection appeared in the glass beside mine, sharp features rendered ghostly by the morning light. You're not a prisoner. Then I can leave? Silence. The kind that answered questions more honestly than words. I turned to face him. He wore a charcoal suit today, tailored perfectly to his frame, making him look less like a criminal and more like a CEO. But the tattoos creeping above his collar and the cold calculation in his eyes betrayed what he really was. That's what I thought, I said. It's not about control. He moved closer, and I hated how my body responded to his proximity. Pulse quickening, breath catching. Fear or something more complicated. I couldn't tell anymore. It's about survival. The moment you step outside this building, you become vulnerable. The circle will take you back. Or worse. Worse than 8 months of being bled dry? Yes. The single word was absolute. My father knows I have you now. He knows I understand what he's been doing. That makes you more than a donor. You're a symbol. Proof of his weakness. Evidence of his crimes. Gunwoo's jaw clenched. He'll kill you rather than let me use you against him. Clean death if you're lucky. Slow if he's feeling vindictive. The casual way he discussed my potential murder should have been horrifying. Instead, it felt almost refreshing. Someone finally being honest about the danger I was in. So what's the plan? I asked. I stay here forever? You fight your family war while I watch from a gilded tower? The plan is, you stay alive. His hand lifted, and I forced myself not to flinch as his fingers traced the air beside my bandaged cheek. The plan is I dismantle the circle piece by piece, cut off my father's resources, and remove him from power permanently. Then you're free. Truly free. How long will that take? As long as it takes. I pushed past him, pacing the length of the room. That's not good enough. I'm not a doll to be placed on a shelf while you play gangster. I stopped, turning to face him. I'm a third-year medical student. Or I was. I have knowledge, skills. I could help. You can help by staying safe. I can help by telling you everything I know about their operation. I moved closer, drawn by something I couldn't name. Anger, desperation, or the magnetic pull of shared purpose. I've been inside their facility, Gunwoo. I know the layout, the security, the staff. I know which cops are paid off, which doctors participate, which politicians look the other way. I'm not just a victim. I'm a witness. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. You remember all that? I'm a med student. We're trained to observe, to catalog, to remember details that might save lives. I held his gaze. Let me help. Don't protect me into irrelevance. He studied me for a long moment, those dark eyes searching for something. Then he nodded slowly. Tell me about the facility. Relief flooded through me. Finally, a chance to fight back. It's underground, beneath a building in Queens. Industrial area, abandoned on the surface. They enter through a delivery bay. The actual medical center is 2 floors down. Clean, professional. Not some back alley butcher shop. How many staff? 3 doctors that I saw regularly. Maybe a dozen nurses and techs. They rotate shifts. I closed my eyes, pulling up memories I'd tried to bury. The head doctor is a woman. Late 50s, Korean. Goes by Dr. Yoon. She's efficient, clinical. Treats us like livestock, but with medical precision. Us? Gunwoo's voice sharpened. There are others? At least 6 that I saw. All women. Different ages, different races. All branded like me. The memory made my skin crawl. They keep us separated most of the time. Can't risk us organizing, I guess. But I saw them in the recovery room after donations. We'd lie there together. Too weak to speak. Just existing. Names? Do you know their names? I shook my head. We weren't allowed to talk. Any communication earned punishment. But I remember faces. One girl, maybe 19, Southeast Asian. Another woman in her 40s, black, with scars that suggested she'd been there a long time. A teenager, white. Couldn't have been more than 16. My voice cracked. They take anyone whose blood matches the type they need. Age doesn't matter. Consent doesn't matter. Just the blood. Gunwoo's hands clenched into fists at his sides. The cops. You mentioned cops. Right. I focused, pushing emotion aside for facts. Officer Cole is the main transport. He picks me up from wherever I'm hiding, drives me to the facility, returns me afterward. He threatened me. Said if I ran, he'd arrest me for prostitution, drug possession, whatever he could make stick. No one would believe a homeless drug addict over a decorated cop. Cole. Gunwoo pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. James Cole, detective, Manhattan Precinct. On my payroll since I took the throne. 18 months. I've been paying him $5,000 a month for information on police investigations into my operations. He looked up, and his expression was carved from ice. I've been funding your torture. The guilt in his eyes was so raw it hurt to witness. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have vetted him better. I should have. He stopped himself, jaw clenched. He's dead. The moment I find him, he's dead. The casual certainty of violence should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something that might have been satisfaction. Dark, primitive. The desire to see your tormentor punished. There are others, I continued. Other cops who help with security at the facility. I don't know names, but I'd recognize faces. Uniforms. They're careful. Professional. This isn't just corruption. It's organized. Systematic. Gunwoo moved to the window, staring out at the city with the focus of a predator selecting prey. My father always had a talent for corruption. He sees weakness and exploits it. Debt, addiction, family troubles. He finds the leverage and applies pressure until good men become his tools. Cole didn't seem like a good man to me. No, Gunwoo agreed. Some people are just waiting for permission to be monsters. My father is excellent at granting that permission. A knock at the door interrupted us. Gunwoo's entire demeanor changed. The man who'd been discussing murder and corruption disappeared, replaced by cold authority. Come. The door opened. A young man entered. Mid-20s Korean, dressed in a dark suit that screamed security. His eyes were sharp, alert, scanning the room in a way that suggested military training. Mr. Kim. We have a situation. Gunwoo's expression didn't change, but I felt the tension in him spike. Speak. Patrol spotted a NYPD cruiser making repeated passes of the building. 3 times in the last hour. Detective James Cole is driving. The name hit me like a physical blow. My breath caught, chest tightening, the room suddenly feeling too small, too warm. I stumbled backward, my hip hitting the edge of the bed. Cole. Here. Rachel. Gunwoo was beside me instantly, his hand steady on my shoulder. Look at me. Focus. But I couldn't. All I could see was Cole's face leaning into the back of his cruiser, his breath hot against my ear as he whispered what would happen if I tried to run, his hand on my arm as he dragged me into the facility, his indifferent expression as I begged, pleaded, sobbed. He knows I'm here. My voice sounded distant, disconnected from my body. He's coming for me. He'll take me back. And they'll. No one is taking you anywhere. Gunwoo's voice cut through the panic like a knife. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Do you hear me? No one touches you. I don't care if he's wearing a badge. I don't care if he brings the entire NYPD. You are safe. You don't understand. He'll find a way. He always finds a way. He has the law on his side. And you. I have something better. Gunwoo released me, turning to his guard. June, bring Cole to me. June's eyebrows rose fractionally, the only sign of surprise. Alive? Alive. For now. Gunwoo's smile was a terrible thing. I want to have a conversation with the man who's been on my payroll while trafficking my family. Sir, if he's still in uniform. I don't care if he's standing in the middle of Times Square in full dress blues. Bring him to me. Quietly if possible. Violently if necessary. June nodded and left without another word. The door closed, and silence fell over the room like a heavy blanket. I sank onto the edge of the bed, shaking. You're going to kill a cop. They'll come after you. The entire system will. The system already looks the other way for worse. Gunwoo knelt in front of me, bringing himself to eye level. Rachel, Cole isn't here in an official capacity. He's here because my father sent him. He's not investigating. He's hunting. And that makes him fair game. What if you're wrong? What if he's just 3 passes in an hour? That's not routine patrol. That's surveillance. His hand covered mine where it gripped the sheets. He knows where you are because someone told him. My father's reach is longer than I anticipated. But that's about to change. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it highlighted how deep this went, how many people were complicit, how vast the circle's reach truly was. Your father, I said slowly. You keep talking about taking him down. But he's the chairman. He has resources, connections, power. How does one person fight that? Gunwoo's smile was sharp. I'm not one person. I'm the psycho. The supreme boss. I have an entire organization at my command. Resources my father no longer controls. Connections he burned when he tried to have me killed 2 years ago. He stood, moving to a cabinet against the wall and pulling out a crystal decanter. My father made one critical mistake when he came back from exile. What's that? He poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a glass. He forgot that loyalty isn't bought with fear alone. It's earned through respect, strength, vision. He took a sip, his throat working as he swallowed. The men who follow me do so because I pulled this organization out of the shadows my father cast. I modernized, legitimized where possible, made us powerful rather than just feared. My father wants to return to the old ways. Brutal, medieval, operating like it's still the 1980 seconds. He turned, leaning against the cabinet. The organization has chosen sides. And they chose me. But if the circle is his, the circle is a side project. A desperate old man's attempt to stay alive long enough to reclaim what he lost. It's funded off the books, staffed with mercenaries and corrupt officials he's blackmailed or bought. Gunwoo's eyes met mine. It's powerful, but it's not invincible. And now that I know it exists, I can dismantle it. How? By removing every piece that supports it. Cole is one piece. Dr. Yoon and her staff are others. The facility itself, the financial pipeline. He took another drink. I cut off each resource until my father is isolated. Then I remove him, permanently. The casual way he discussed patricide should have been shocking. But I'd learned enough about this world to understand. Family or not, the chairman was a threat, and threats were eliminated. "What do you need from me?" I asked. He looked surprised. "You've already given me enough. The facility location, the staff details, Cole's involvement." "No," I stood, moving toward him with more confidence than I felt. "I mean, what do you need from me to help end this? I'm not sitting on the sidelines while you fight my battle. Rachel, I'm a third-year med student." I cut him off. "I've done rotations in trauma surgery, emergency medicine, forensic pathology. I know how to read medical records, identify controlled substances, trace pharmaceutical supply chains. If the Circle is running a medical operation, I can help you understand it, exploit it, destroy it." He studied me for a long moment, and I could see him weighing the risks against the benefits. "You understand what you're offering? This isn't academics. This is war. People will die. Some of them might deserve it. Others will just be casualties. I've been a casualty for 8 months. I held his gaze. "I'd rather be a soldier." Something in his expression shifted. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He set down his glass and closed the distance between us. This close, I could see the details I'd been cataloging unconsciously. The exact shade of his eyes, deep brown that looked black in certain light. The scar through his eyebrow. The way the tattoos on his neck seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "What did you expect? Broken. Afraid. Fragile." His hand lifted, and this time when he touched my face, his fingers actually made contact. Warm skin against the unbandaged side of my cheek. "You're none of those things. I am all of those things." My voice came out softer than intended. "But I'm also angry, and anger is better fuel than fear." His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I felt the touch everywhere. A current running through me that had nothing to do with terror and everything to do with something far more dangerous. Attraction. To a man who killed people, who discussed murder over breakfast, who held me with hands that had dealt death and offered them like they could also offer salvation. "Be careful with that anger," he murmured. "It burns hot, but fire consumes everything, including the person who wields it. Then we'll burn together." The words hung between us, charged with meaning I hadn't intended. His eyes darkened, pupils dilating, and for a moment I thought he might close the distance, might kiss me, might blur the lines between protector and something else entirely. Instead, he stepped back, breaking the moment. "When June brings Cole, I want you there," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "I want you to see him powerless, afraid, facing consequences. Will you be strong enough for that?" I thought about Cole's hands on me, his voice in my ear, his indifference to my suffering, and I felt that anger Gunwoo had warned about, burning bright and vicious in my chest. "I'll be strong enough." "Good." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Rachel, what you said about burning together," he looked back, and his expression was unreadable. "Be careful making promises to men like me. We have a tendency to hold people to them." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the ghost of his touch on my face and the certainty that I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. I was falling for the monster who'd saved me, and that might be more dangerous than anything the Circle could do. The call came 3 hours later. I was in the library, a room I'd discovered that morning. All dark wood and leather-bound books that smelled of paper and time. Trying to distract myself from what was coming, from what I'd agreed to witness. The door opened. June stood there, his usually impassive face showing the faintest crack of tension. "Mr. Kim requests your presence. 3rd floor, now." I followed him through corridors I'd never seen, deeper into the penthouse's maze-like structure. The decor changed as we descended. Less refined, more utilitarian. Concrete floors. Exposed pipes. This was the building's infrastructure. the skeleton beneath the beautiful skin. We stopped at a reinforced steel door. June swiped a keycard, and it opened with a pneumatic hiss. The room beyond looked like something between a police interrogation room and a surgical theater. White tile walls, drain in the center of the floor, stainless steel table, and strapped to that table, still in his police uniform, was Officer James Cole. He looked smaller than I remembered, less imposing, just a middle-aged man with thinning hair and the beginnings of a gut, sweating through his uniform shirt. Gunwoo stood beside the table, completely relaxed, looking at Cole the way someone might look at an interesting insect. When he heard us enter, he turned. "Rachel, come here." My feet moved automatically, carrying me closer until I stood beside him. Close enough to see Cole's face clearly. Close enough to watch his eyes widen with recognition when he saw me. "You," Cole breathed. "You fucking, watch your mouth." Gunwoo's voice was soft, but Cole shut up instantly. "Rachel is family. You speak to her with respect, or you don't speak at all." Cole's eyes darted between us, calculating. "I want a lawyer. I know my rights. You can't. You're not under arrest." Gunwoo pulled a small knife from his pocket, the blade glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. "This isn't a legal proceeding. This is a conversation. And you're going to tell me everything I want to know, or..." He pressed the blade against Cole's thumb, not cutting, just promising. "You're going to learn that there are things worse than jail." I should have been horrified, should have protested, demanded he stop, reminded him that torture was wrong even when the victim deserved it. But I wasn't. I watched Cole's face contort with fear, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no mercy, just a cold satisfaction that finally, he was the one who was scared. "The facility in Queens?" Gunwoo continued conversationally. "Tell me about it." "I don't know what you're talking about." Cole's voice shook despite the defiance. "I'm a cop. I don't." Gunwoo pressed harder. A thin line of blood appeared, crimson against pale skin. Cole screamed. "That was just a scratch," Gunwoo said calmly. "Let me rephrase. Tell me about the facility, or I'll take a finger, then another. Then we'll get creative." Okay. Cole was gasping now, tears streaming down his face. "The facility. It's in Long Island City, beneath the old Steinway factory. The chairman runs it. I just transport the girls. That's all. I don't hurt anyone, I just drive." "You just drive." Gunwoo's voice was arctic. "You just transport kidnapped women to be systematically drained of blood. You just threaten them into silence. You just deliver them back to homelessness and hope they're too afraid to run." He leaned closer. "That's not innocence, detective. That's complicity. I didn't have a choice." Cole's voice broke. The chairman had evidence. "My gambling debts. Some things I did when I was younger. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd ruin me. My career, my family, everything. So you chose to ruin others instead." Gunwoo straightened, looking down at Cole with something that might have been contempt. "Cowardice, dressed as necessity. How original." He turned to me. "Rachel, do you have any questions for Detective Cole?" I stepped closer, looking down at the man who'd haunted my nightmares, who'd dragged me to that facility twice a week for 8 months, who'd threatened me, terrorized me, treated me like cargo. "The other girls?" I said. "Where does he take them after donations?" Cole's eyes shifted away. "I don't. Look at her when she speaks." Gunwoo's voice cracked like a whip. "And answer honestly, or we continue our previous conversation about fingers." "Back to wherever they're staying," Cole said quickly. "The tunnels. Shelters. Some of them have jobs. We drop them off. Tell them when to be ready for the next pickup. And if they refuse?" Cole swallowed. "We make sure they understand refusal isn't an option." "How?" I pressed. "How do you make sure?" His silence was answer enough. The bruises I'd seen on the other girls, the way some of them flinched at shadows. Violence as persuasion. "One more question," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If I'd run, really run, left the state, what would have happened?" Cole's laugh was bitter. You think you could have run? The chairman has people everywhere. Cops, feds, border patrol. You wouldn't have made it out of New York before someone picked you up. He met my eyes. There was never any escape, sweetheart. You were always his. The casualness of it, the certainty, made my blood run cold. He was probably right. Without Gunwoo, I'd have been trapped forever, running in circles until my body gave out. Thank you, detective. Gunwoo's hand settled on my lower back, warm through the thin fabric of my shirt. You've been very helpful. So I can go? Hope flickered in Cole's eyes. Absolutely not. Gunwoo smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. You're going to tell my men everything. Every name, every location, every detail of the Circle's operation. And when you're done, he paused. We'll discuss what happens next. You can't kill a cop. You'll have every badge in the city coming for you. Who said anything about killing you? Gunwoo's expression didn't change. Death is release. I'm going to make sure you live long enough to regret every choice that brought you here. He guided me toward the door, his hand steady against my back. As we stepped into the hallway, I heard Cole start to sob, the broken sound of a man realizing he'd finally met someone more powerful than his protections. The door sealed behind us, muffling the sound. Are you all right? Gunwoo asked. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was true. I thought seeing him afraid would feel better, like justice. But it doesn't change what happened, doesn't undo it. I leaned against the concrete wall, suddenly exhausted. He's right, isn't he? Without you, I never would have escaped. Maybe. Gunwoo's hand came up to cut my jaw, tilting my face toward his. But you survived long enough for me to find you. That takes strength most people don't have. Before I could respond, an alarm shrieked through the building. Red lights strobed, and the sound was deafening. A pulsing wail that made my teeth ache. Gunwoo's entire demeanor changed. The man who'd been almost gentle disappeared, replaced by the warrior I'd glimpsed in Grand Central. He grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the wall. What's happening? I shouted over the alarm. Breach. He was already moving, dragging me with him toward the stairs. Someone's inside the building. Who? Only one group would be bold enough. His jaw was set, expression grim. My father knows where you are, and he's decided subtle doesn't work. We hit the stairs at a run. June materialized from somewhere, flanked by 3 other men in dark suits, all drawing weapons with practiced efficiency. The sound of gunfire echoed from above, sharp cracks that made my heart hammer. How many? Gunwoo asked June, without breaking stride. At least a dozen. Professional. They came up through the parking garage, bypassed security like they had the codes. This was planned. The chairman had access codes when this was his building. Gunwoo cursed in Korean. I should have changed them all. My arrogance. We burst through a door into a hallway I recognized. Closer to my room. The lights flickered, emergency backups kicking in. More gunfire, closer now. Gunwoo shoved me toward June. Get her to the panic room. Seal it. Don't open it for anyone but me. Sir, you need backup. I need her safe. Gunwoo's voice was harsh. Everything else is secondary. Go. June grabbed my arm, pulling me away. I tried to resist, reaching for Gunwoo. Wait, you can't. But he was already gone, running toward the sound of combat with the fearlessness of someone who'd made peace with death long ago. June dragged me through corridors that twisted and turned, each step taking us deeper into the penthouse's core. We passed bodies, men in dark tactical gear, bleeding on expensive carpet. Gunwoo's men, fighting and dying to buy us time. A figure appeared ahead. Tactical vest. Assault rifle. He raised the weapon. June shoved me behind him and fired 3 times. The man dropped. Keep moving. June pulled me forward, stepping over the body without pause. We reached a door that looked like all the others. Dark wood. No distinguishing features. But when June pressed his palm to the handle, it glowed blue, reading his biometrics. The door opened to reveal a small room. Reinforced walls. Monitors showing security feeds from throughout the building. Supplies stacked along one wall. Water, food, medical kits. A panic room, built for exactly this scenario. "Inside," June ordered. I stumbled in, and he started to follow, then jerked backward, a spray of blood misting the air. He'd been shot from behind. I screamed, reaching for him, but he shoved me hard. I fell backward into the panic room, and he slammed the door shut between us. Through the small, reinforced window, I watched him turn to face his attacker, still firing even as blood poured from the wound in his shoulder. The door sealed with a hydraulic hiss, the lock engaged. A sound like a bank vault closing. Bulletproof. Bomb-proof. Sealed from the inside with no way to open it externally. Safe. I was safe. But Gunwoo was out there, fighting his father's army. June was bleeding in the hallway, and I was locked in a box, useless. I moved to the monitors, fingers shaking as I cycled through camera feeds. The penthouse was a war zone. Bodies in every corridor, bullet holes in walls, smoke from what looked like grenades. Then I found him. Gunwoo moved through the chaos like death incarnate. He'd shed his jacket, his white shirt stained with blood. His or someone else's. I couldn't tell. He fought with brutal efficiency, dropping attackers with precise shots, moving constantly, never giving them a stationary target. But there were so many of them. For every one he dropped, 2 more appeared. I watched him take cover behind an overturned couch. Reload. His movements were getting slower, labored. He was tiring. Then something on another monitor caught my eye. A thermal readout, standard security feature to track body heat signatures. The panic room was designed to monitor the entire building's heat signatures to track threats. My blood ran cold. Gunwoo's heat signature was wrong. Too hot, fever hot, and getting hotter. No. I cycled to the medical monitors. Another panic room feature, designed to track the biometrics of the building's occupants via implanted chips. Gunwoo's vitals appeared on screen. Heart rate, 142 BPM, elevated but manageable for combat. Blood pressure, 98/62, low, too low. Temperature, 103.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Fever range, blood oxygen, 89%, dropping. He was crashing. Something was wrong with him, beyond the normal stress of fighting. His body was failing. Then I remembered. 3 days ago, in this very building. The transfusion. He'd given me his blood, weakening himself to save me from sepsis. And I'd been so focused on my own recovery, I hadn't thought about his. You couldn't give that much blood and bounce back in 3 days. The body needed weeks to replenish. Red blood cells, plasma, clotting factors. All of it took time to regenerate. Time Gunwoo hadn't had before his father's attack. He was fighting on an empty tank. His body was consuming itself to function. I watched him stumble on the monitor, catch himself, fire again. But his aim was off. His movements uncoordinated. Hypovolemic shock. The medical diagnosis came automatically, my training kicking in even through my panic. He was going into shock from blood loss and stress combined. If he didn't get a transfusion soon, his organs would start shutting down. And the only person in this building with compatible blood was locked in a panic room. I ran to the door, pounding on the reinforced steel. "Let me out. Open the door." But it was designed not to open from outside, not to respond to screams or pleas, to keep its occupants safe no matter what they wanted. I was going to watch him die on these monitors because he'd saved my life first. The irony was brutal. I cycled through the cameras frantically, trying to find help, trying to find anyone who could get to him. But Gunwoo's men were pinned down or dead. June had collapsed in the hallway outside my door, unconscious or worse. There was no cavalry coming. On the main monitor, Gunwoo dropped to one knee. He fired again, the recoil almost knocking him backward. His hand went to his side, coming away red. He'd been shot, and his body didn't have enough blood left to handle it. I looked around the panic room desperately. Medical supplies, food, water, monitors, everything except what I needed most. A way out. Then I saw it. A small panel beneath the main monitor, labeled Emergency Medical Override. I ripped it open. Inside was a keypad and a biometric scanner, and instructions in Korean and English, in case of medical emergency requiring evacuation of protected occupant. Authorized medical personnel may override lockdown. Scan ID, enter medical code. Door will unseal for 60 seconds. But I wasn't authorized medical personnel. I was a med student without credentials. I had no ID to scan, no code to enter. I looked back at the monitors. Gunwoo had fallen. He was on the ground now, still firing, but barely moving. His heat signature was dimming on the thermal display. He was dying, because he'd saved me, because he'd given me his blood when I needed it, never thinking about what would happen if he needed it back. My eyes fell on the medical supplies. IV bags. Whole blood units labeled with his blood type, AB negative, RH null variant. His own blood, stored for exactly this scenario. But the blood was in here, and he was out there, dying, unless I looked down at my arm. At the faint marks from where I'd been hooked to IVs for days, at the veins that carried blood he'd given me, blood that his body had created, blood that matched his type perfectly because it came from him. I'd been a donor for 8 months. I knew exactly how to set up a transfusion, how to find a vein, how to prevent infection, how to keep someone alive with nothing but tubes and gravity. But first, I needed to get to him. I turned back to the biometric scanner, pressed my palm to it. Access denied. Unknown user. I tried again, searching the panel for any other option. A maintenance code, an emergency bypass, anything. Nothing. On the monitor, Gunwoo had stopped moving. His eyes were closed, his chest barely rising. He was seconds from unconsciousness, minutes from death, and I was locked in a room that he'd built to protect me. Built so well that it might kill him. I screamed. Rage and frustration and helplessness tearing from my throat. My fists slammed into the reinforced glass of the door's window. Once, twice, blood appeared on my knuckles, but the glass didn't crack. I was going to lose him, after everything. After he'd saved me, protected me, given me hope that there was something beyond surviving. I was going to watch him die, unless I did something he wouldn't approve of, something dangerous, possibly stupid, definitely against everything he'd ordered. I grabbed the medical supplies, IV bags, lines, alcohol swabs, tape, shoved them into a bag along with water and gauze. Then I went back to the door panel. The instructions said the door would unseal for 60 seconds during a medical emergency override. What they didn't say was what would trigger the override if authorized personnel weren't available, but I'd been in enough hospitals to know. Some systems had automatic overrides based on biometric emergencies. If the panic room detected the occupant was in medical distress, heart attack, stroke, anaphylaxis, it would automatically unseal to allow emergency services in. I couldn't fake a heart attack, but I could manipulate one biometric reading. I grabbed an IV needle from the medical supplies, placed it against the vein in my inner elbow. The big one, the antecubital vein that they always went for when drawing large amounts of blood. If I hit it right, I could drop my blood pressure fast enough to trigger the medical sensors. The panic room would think I was hemorrhaging, and it would open. But if I hit it wrong, I'd bleed out in this sealed room, and no one would know until Gunwoo's men finally broke through. If they broke through, I looked at the monitor one more time. Gunwoo's heat signature was fading. No choice. There was never any choice. I pressed the needle into my vein and pushed. Blood welled up, spilling over my arm, dripping onto the floor. I dropped the needle and pressed my palm over the puncture, applying pressure but not enough to stop it entirely. Pain exploded up my arm. My vision swam. I stumbled to the wall, sliding down it, keeping my arm elevated to speed the blood flow. "Come on," I whispered to the room's medical sensors. "Come on." The monitors began to change. My heart rate spiked. Blood pressure dropped. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. Occupant medical emergency detected. Blood pressure critical. Initiating emergency override. The door hissed. Locks disengaged. Emergency personnel, please respond. Door unsealing in 3, 2, 1. The door opened. I grabbed the medical bag with my free hand and stumbled into the hallway. June was still there, unconscious, blood pooling beneath him. I wanted to stop, to help, but Gunwoo's situation was more critical. I ran. Blood dripped from my arm, leaving a trail, but I couldn't stop to properly bandage it. Every second counted. The sound of gunfire had stopped. Either Gunwoo's men had won, or there was no one left to fight. I found him in what used to be the living room. The beautiful space was destroyed. Furniture overturned, bullet holes in the walls, blood on the marble floors. He lay on his back, perfectly still. His white shirt was almost entirely red now. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue. Not breathing well, or at all. I dropped beside him, fingers going to his neck. Pulse. Thready and weak, but there. Still alive. Barely. Gunwoo. I shook him. Stay with me. Please, stay with me. His eyes fluttered, focused on me with effort. Rachel? His voice was barely a whisper. Panic room. Why aren't you? Shut up. I was already tearing open his shirt, looking for the wound. Found it. Left side, just below his ribs. Bleeding steadily. You're going into hypovolemic shock. You need blood. Now. No hospitals. He tried to push my hands away. Can't risk. I'm not taking you to a hospital. I ripped open the IV supplies with my teeth. I'm giving you mine. Understanding dawned in his eyes. No, your arm. You're bleeding. You can't. Watch me. I tied the tourniquet around my upper arm with one hand and my teeth, found the vein, and inserted the IV needle. My hands shook, but held steady enough. Blood flowed into the tube. Dark red, healthy. His blood that I'd been carrying in my veins for days. Then I found his vein, inserted the second needle, and connected the line. His blood, given back to him. A closed loop of survival. This is insane, he whispered. You'll kill yourself. You gave me your blood when I needed it. I pressed gauze to his wound, applying pressure to slow the bleeding. Now I'm giving it back. Fair trade. His hand found mine where it pressed against his side. You're impossible. You're one to talk. I watched the blood flow through the clear tube, from my arm to his. You knowingly walked into a fight 3 days after donating a pint of blood. What did you think would happen? I thought. He coughed, and blood flecked his lips. I'd win faster. Despite everything, I laughed. The sound was half hysteria. You're dying, and you're making jokes. If I'm dying, his fingers tightened on mine. At least it's looking at you. The words hit something in my chest. Something I'd been trying to ignore since he'd caught me in Grand Central. Since he'd fed me soup and looked at my branded face with fury instead of pity. Since he'd called me family and meant it. You're not dying, I said firmly. I won't let you. His eyes were starting to unfocus. The transfusion was working, but not fast enough. He needed more blood than I could safely give. Needed proper treatment. Needed... Rachel. His voice was fading. Promise me, if I don't... No. I pressed harder on his wound. Don't you dare. Don't you dare leave me. Promise me you'll finish it. Destroy the circle. Free the others. His breathing was shallow. Promise. I promise. Tears blurred my vision. But you're going to be there to help me. You're not checking out. You don't get to save me and then die. That's not how this works. How does it work? His eyes held mine, and despite the pain, despite the fading, there was something almost tender in his gaze. You live. My voice cracked. You survive this, and then we burn it all down together, the way you promised. His thumb traced over my knuckles. Together, I repeated. His eyes closed. His breathing steadied slightly. The transfusion was working. His body was fighting. I just needed to keep him stable until help arrived. I looked around the destroyed room. Where was everyone? Where were his men? Then I heard it. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Heavy boots on marble. I grabbed Gunwoo's gun from where it had fallen beside him. I'd never fired a weapon in my life, but I'd seen enough movies. Point. Pull trigger. Protect. The footsteps got closer. I raised the gun toward the doorway, my hands shaking but determined. If they wanted to finish him, they'd have to go through me first. The figure that appeared in the doorway wasn't wearing tactical gear. Just a dark suit, now rumpled and torn. Blood on his sleeve, but standing, alive. June, Miss Rachel. He took in the scene. Me, with an IV line running from my arm to Gunwoo's, the gun in my free hand, the blood everywhere. The building is secure. The chairman's men are dead or captured. I lowered the gun. Gunwoo needs a doctor. He's been shot, and he's in hypovolemic shock. I'm transfusing, but it's not enough. He needs proper medical attention. June was already pulling out his phone. Dr. Han is on his way. ETA 5 minutes. He moved closer, assessing Gunwoo's condition with professional efficiency. You saved his life. He saved mine first. I kept pressure on the wound. This just makes us even. No. June's voice was quiet. This makes you family. True family. The kind that bleeds for each other. I looked down at Gunwoo's pale face, at the tube connecting my blood to his veins, at the way his fingers still held mine even in unconsciousness. Family. Maybe June was right. Maybe I'd found something in this violent, dangerous world that I'd never had before. A reason to fight. A reason to survive. A reason to burn down everyone who'd ever hurt us, and stand in the ashes together. Dr. Han arrived in a whirlwind of efficiency. He took one look at my improvised transfusion and nodded approval before setting up proper medical equipment. You may have just saved his life, he said as he worked. And possibly killed yourself in the process. How much blood have you given him? I looked at the IV bag I'd been monitoring. Maybe half a pint. Not enough to be dangerous. Combined with your earlier wound. He gestured to my arm where I'd stabbed myself to trigger the panic room override. You're looking at a pint total. That's a full donation. You're going to be weak. Dizzy. Possibly unconscious within the hour. I'll manage. You'll rest, he corrected. As soon as I stabilize Mr. Kim, you're going on IV fluids and bed rest. No arguments. I didn't have the energy to argue anyway. Now that the adrenaline was fading, I could feel it, the weakness creeping through my limbs, the gray edges of my vision, the way my hands trembled against Gunwoo's wound. I'd given him what he'd given me, blood for blood, life for life, and I'd do it again without hesitation. Because somewhere between being caught and being saved, between monster and man, Kim Gunwoo had become mine to protect too, even if it killed me. The next time I woke, it was to the sensation of movement, not the gentle sway of a bed, the rumble and vibration of a vehicle in motion. My eyes opened to dim light. The interior of what looked like an armored SUV. Medical equipment beeped softly beside me. An IV line ran into my arm, and Gunwoo sat across from me, looking pale but alive, awake, watching me with dark eyes that held something I couldn't quite read. You're supposed to be resting, I managed, my voice rough. So are you. His smile was faint. Yet here we are, both of us terrible patients. I tried to sit up. The world tilted alarmingly, and his hand shot out, steadying me. Easy. You lost a lot of blood. Dr. Han wanted to keep you sedated for the trip, but he hesitated. I wanted you awake. Wanted you to know what's happening. What is happening? I looked around the vehicle. June was driving. I could see him through the partition. We were on a highway, trees blurring past in the darkness. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Gunwoo's hand remained on my shoulder, warm and grounding. The penthouse is compromised. My father knew the security codes, the layout, everything. It's no longer defensible. So we're running? We're regrouping. His jaw clenched. And I'm taking you to the one fortress designed to keep everyone out. Even him. A place built during the Cold War, designed to withstand nuclear strikes and siege warfare. The Iron Vault. The name sounded ominous. What is it? A bunker. Upstate, buried beneath 300 feet of rock. My grandfather built it in the 1960s when he first immigrated, paranoid about government raids and family vendettas. Gunwoo settled back in his seat, and I could see the effort it cost him. Moving carefully, protecting the wound in his side. It has its own power supply, water filtration, enough supplies for months. Once we're inside, nothing can touch us. What about your men? June, Dr. Han, June is with us. Dr. Han will meet us there. The rest of my organization is scattered, going to ground, securing assets, preparing for full-scale war. His eyes met mine. My father's attack on the penthouse was a declaration. No more shadows, no more subtlety. This is open conflict now. I processed that, my mind still sluggish from blood loss. And the girls? The other vessels from the circle? June's men are extracting them as we speak. Every location Cole gave us, every facility he knew about. By morning, the circle will have no donors left. His voice hardened. And without donors, my father has no way to sustain himself. His leukemia will kill him in weeks. So we wait him out? Let him die slowly? If necessary. Gunwoo's expression was grim, though I'd prefer a more direct approach. But first, you and I both need to heal, and the vault is the only place secure enough to do it. The vehicle turned off the highway, taking smaller roads that wound through dense forest. The city lights had long since disappeared, replaced by the vast darkness of rural New York. Tell me about it, I said, trying to stay awake despite the exhaustion pulling at me. The vault. Gunwoo's expression softened slightly. It's old-fashioned, Cold War paranoia made concrete, but it's self-sufficient. Underground greenhouse for food, water from an aquifer, communications equipment, medical bay, everything needed to survive indefinitely. He paused. My grandfather used to take me there as a child, trained me in those corridors, taught me to shoot in the firing range. It was his fortress, his legacy. But I retrofitted the airlocks and changed the biometrics 2 years ago. And now it's yours. Now it's ours. The correction was gentle but firm. Your Kim family, Rachel. That makes it yours too. Family. The word still felt foreign. For so long, I'd been alone. No parents, no relatives, just me against the world. Now this man was offering not just protection but belonging, a place in a bloodline that came with violence and power and danger, but also with something I'd never had, people who fought for me. The vehicle slowed, turning onto what looked like an old service road. Trees pressed close on both sides, branches scraping against the armored hull. Then we stopped. June got out, and I heard him working outside. The sound of something heavy moving, metal on metal, a hidden entrance being opened. We're here, Gunwoo said. The vehicle moved forward again, descending now. The angle was steep enough that I had to grip the seat to keep from sliding, down and down, into the earth itself. The temperature dropped, the air taking on that underground quality. Still, heavy, untouched by wind. Finally, we stopped. June opened the door, and I saw where we were. A massive space carved from living rock. Concrete reinforcements, heavy blast doors that looked like they belonged on a military installation. Generator lights flickered on, illuminating a complex that seemed to go on forever. Corridors branching in multiple directions, storage areas stacked with supplies, living quarters visible through open doorways. Welcome to the Iron Vault, Gunwoo said. June helped me out of the vehicle, supporting my weight when my legs proved shakier than expected. Gunwoo emerged more slowly, his movements careful. We were both wounded, both weak. 2 broken people retreating to a fortress built to withstand the end of the world. The medical bay is this way, June said, leading us down a corridor. Dr. Han should arrive within the hour. I'll get you both settled. The medical bay was impressive. A fully equipped surgical theater, complete with monitoring equipment, pharmaceutical storage, and 2 hospital beds. Someone had prepared it recently. The sheets were fresh, the equipment humming with power. I sank onto one bed gratefully. The transfusion bag was nearly empty. Dr. Han had been slowly replacing the fluids I'd lost, but I still felt hollowed out, weak, like my body was running on fumes. Gunwoo took the bed beside mine, and for a moment we just existed there. 2 survivors, bloodied but alive, hidden beneath the earth. Thank you, he said quietly, for what you did, coming after me, giving me your blood. You could have stayed safe in that panic room. You would have died. Yes, but you would have lived. His eyes found mine. Most people would have chosen survival. I'm not most people. I met his gaze steadily. And you're not just anyone. I stopped, not sure how to finish. What was he to me? Savior? Family? Something more complicated that I didn't have words for? I know, he said softly, saving me from having to explain. I know. June returned with water and what looked like protein bars. Eat, both of you. Dr. Han's orders until he arrives. We obeyed, too tired to argue. The food was bland but functional, and my body accepted it gratefully. I was halfway through my second protein bar. Gunwoo had turned his back to me, rummaging through the medical cabinet. I heard the snap of a glass vial and the hiss of a syringe. But before I could ask what he was taking for the pain, the lights went out. Total darkness. The kind that exists only underground, where no natural light penetrates. The medical equipment died mid-beep. The gentle hum of the generators cut off like someone had thrown a switch. June? Gunwoo's voice was sharp in the sudden silence. I'm here. Don't move. Let me check. Then a new light appeared. Dim, red. Emergency lighting kicking in. It cast everything in blood-colored shadows, transforming the medical bay into something from a nightmare. And through the open doorway, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Slow, deliberate footsteps, multiple sets, coming closer. We have company, June said, his voice tight. The main entrance has been sealed from inside. We're locked in. That's impossible, Gunwoo said. The access codes. Were mine first, boy. The voice came from the doorway. Old, rough with age and sickness, but carrying undeniable authority. A figure appeared in the red emergency light. Skeletal thin, leaning on a cane, hooked to a portable oxygen tank that wheezed with each breath. But his eyes were sharp and cruel and triumphant. The chairman, Gunwoo's father, the man who hunted my bloodline across a century. Hello, son, the chairman said. Welcome home. Behind him, more figures appeared. Armed men, not tactical gear this time, but street clothes, the kind of muscle that worked in shadows, not battlefields. We were trapped, sealed in a bunker with the man who'd ordered my torture. With nowhere to run, no way out. The Iron Vault, Gunwoo's ultimate fortress, had become a tomb, and the chairman was here to bury us in it. The chairman looked like death walking, not the metaphorical kind, the literal, medical kind. His skin had the translucent quality of parchment stretched too thin over bone. Liver spots mapped his skull like continents on aged paper. The oxygen tank wheezed beside him, each breath a labored rattle that echoed in the red emergency lighting. But his eyes, those remained sharp. Predatory. The eyes of a man who'd built an empire on other people's suffering and saw no reason to stop now. You always were sentimental, Gunwoo. The chairman's voice scraped like rust. Bringing the vessel here. To my fortress. Did you think I wouldn't find you? Gunwoo moved, or tried to. His hand went to his side where the bullet wound hadn't fully healed, where he'd given too much blood too recently. His body betrayed him, swaying, and I saw the weakness he'd been hiding. This was never your fortress. Gunwoo's voice stayed level despite his pallor. You lost it when you tried to have me killed. I lost nothing. The chairman tapped his cane against concrete. I simply waited, watched you play at being psycho while I rebuilt in the shadows, and when I needed donors, his gaze slid to me, clinical and cold. I took what belonged to me by blood. The possessiveness in those words made my skin crawl. I wasn't a person to him, just a genetic resource, a walking blood bank carrying his family's rare variant. She's not yours. Gunwoo stepped between us, blocking his father's view. She's under my protection. Protection? The chairman laughed. A wet, rattling sound. You can barely stand, boy. That transfusion you gave her weakened you. And now you're in my bunker, surrounded by my men, with nowhere to run. He leaned forward, the oxygen tube swaying. How exactly do you plan to protect anyone? The armed men behind him shifted. 6 of them, weapons drawn but not aimed. Not yet. They watched Gunwoo the way you'd watch a wounded tiger. Dangerous even when dying. I'm offering you a choice. The chairman's tone turned almost reasonable. Give me the girl. Let me take what I need. You walk away. Live to rebuild. Fight another day. And if I refuse, then you both die. Slowly. I'll drain her in front of you. Then I'll hook you up and take everything. Every drop, while you watch her corpse grow cold. His smile was skeletal. I prefer efficiency, but I'm willing to get creative for my disobedient son. The temperature in the bunker seemed to drop. I felt Gunwoo's hand find mine, his fingers wrapping around my wrist. Not possessive, grounding, like he needed to feel my pulse to remember why he was fighting. There's a third option, Gunwoo said quietly. The chairman raised an eyebrow. Oh? Take me instead. The words fell like stones into water, rippling out, changing everything. No, I jerked forward, but June's hand caught my shoulder, holding me back. Gunwoo, no, I'm healthy, strong. Gunwoo ignored me, his focus entirely on his father. My blood is undiluted, better quality than hers. You said it yourself. Family blood is more potent. Son's blood is better than some distant branch. The chairman studied him, considering. I could see the calculation in those sharp eyes. Weighing options, measuring value. She goes free, Gunwoo continued, unharmed. You give her money, documents, whatever she needs to disappear. In exchange, you get me. Full access, as much blood as you need. Gunwoo, don't. My voice cracked. Don't do this. He turned to me then, crossed the distance between us in 2 strides despite his weakness. His hands framed my face, thumbs tracing my cheekbones with devastating gentleness. Listen to me. His voice dropped to something only I could hear. I've lived with blood on my hands, deaths I ordered, sins I can't wash away. But you, his forehead pressed to mine. You're still good, still clean. You deserve a life beyond this. Not without you. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't survive 8 months just to watch you die. You survived because you're stronger than all of us. His lips brushed my temple. Not quite a kiss, but close enough to feel like goodbye. Now prove it. Live. He whispered something then, so quiet I almost missed it. 2 words in Korean I didn't understand. But the way he said them, like a prayer, like a promise, like a confession, made my heart shatter. Then he turned to the chairman. Do we have a deal? The old man smiled. We have a deal. Gunwoo walked to the medical chair in the center of the room. The same kind of chair that had held me prisoner for months. Sat down, extended his arms across the rests. No restraints needed, he said. I won't fight. The chairman gestured to one of his men. A thin man with a medical bag who moved with clinical efficiency. Not a street thug. A trained professional. How many times had he done this before? I tried to go to Gunwoo, tried to run to him, but June held me back. His grip iron despite his own injuries. Let her watch, the chairman said. Let her see what sacrifice looks like. The medic worked quickly. Needles into both of Gunwoo's arms. IV lines connecting him to bags, then to a machine, then to the chairman's wheelchair-mounted transfusion setup, a closed loop. Father feeding on son. Gunwoo's eyes found mine across the room. He didn't look afraid, didn't look resigned. He looked peaceful, like he'd finally found absolution for sins he'd been carrying too long. I mouthed the words, "Don't leave me." He smiled, that devastating smile that had first caught me in Grand Central, and mouthed back, "Never." Then the chairman gave the order. The machine activated, and Gunwoo's blood began to flow. The sound was hypnotic in its horror, the soft whir of the transfusion pump, the steady drip, drip, drip of blood moving through clear tubes, Gunwoo's pulse visible in the crimson flow, each heartbeat pushing life from his body into his father's. I watched the chairman's color improve almost immediately. His skin pinked, his breathing eased. The oxygen tank's wheeze quieted as his lungs remembered how to function properly. Gunwoo's blood was medicine. Liquid salvation for a dying man. And it was killing the man I couldn't finish that thought. Couldn't name what had grown between us in days that felt like lifetimes. But watching his life drain away, I felt it like a physical wound. Magnificent. The chairman closed his eyes, savoring the sensation. I can feel it already, Strength. Clarity. This is what I've been missing. Not that diluted mongrel blood from the girl. Pure Kim blood. Legacy blood. Gunwoo's lips were already losing color. His chest rose and fell too quickly, his body trying to compensate for the volume loss. But he stayed silent, watching me with eyes that held no regret. You should be grateful. The chairman continued, his voice stronger now. Your death has purpose. You're giving your father life. There's honor in that. Honor. Gunwoo's voice was soft but cutting. Is that what you call it? I call it survival. The chairman opened his eyes. I built this empire. I bled for it. I won't surrender it to death or to an ungrateful son who thinks mercy is strength. Mercy isn't weakness. Gunwoo's head lolled slightly. He was fading. You taught me to be ruthless, but you forgot to teach me when to stop. Because there is no stopping. Not for men like us. The chairman leaned forward. Power is maintained through strength, through taking what you need. You were too soft, too willing to modernize, to legitimize. You made us weak. I made us sustainable. Gunwoo's breathing was labored now. Your way was dying. I saved us. By betraying tradition, by showing mercy to enemies, by... The chairman coughed, just once, a wet, rattling sound. Then again, his hand went to his throat, his eyes widened. Father? One of the guards stepped forward. The chairman coughed harder. Blood speckled his lips. His body convulsed, not gradually but violently, like someone had electrocuted him. And Gunwoo smiled. It was terrible, beautiful. The smile of a man who'd just won by losing everything. What? The chairman tried to speak, but his throat was closing. What did you... Warfarin. Gunwoo's voice was dreamy, distant. Massive dose. Injected it before we entered the main chamber. The doctor will find the needle mark eventually. His smile widened. You're not the only one who knows how to poison blood, Father. Horror and understanding crashed through me simultaneously. The whispered Korean words. Poisoned chalice. He'd made himself toxic. A Trojan horse, giving his father exactly what he wanted, and killing them both. You! The chairman was seizing now, his body rejecting the blood that was supposed to save him. You killed us both. You insane. Not insane. Practical. Gunwoo's eyes were closing. You taught me that family is everything, so I'm taking you with me. The Kim bloodline ends here. With us. No more monsters. Gunwoo. I finally broke free from June's weakening grip, running to him. Why would you? What did you? His hand found mine, squeezed weakly. Couldn't let him have you. This way. You're free. Both of you. All the girls. He's the head of the circle. With him gone. You're dying. Tears poured down my face. You poisoned yourself. Vitamin K, he whispered. In the medical supplies. Antidote. But you'll need. He coughed, and blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Need to work fast. I don't. Don't know how long. The chairman collapsed. His men rushed to him, but I could see it was too late. His blood was too thin to clot. He was bleeding from everywhere. Nose, eyes, mouth, internal hemorrhaging. The warfarin was eating him alive. And Gunwoo was next. Where? I grabbed his face, forcing him to focus. Where are the supplies? Crash cart, yellow cabinet. His eyes rolled back. No. I slapped him. Not hard, but sharp enough to pull him back. Stay with me. Gunwoo. Look at me. His eyes fluttered open, barely focused. I spun to June. The medical supplies. Now. But June was staring at something behind me. His face went pale. I turned. Officer Cole stood in the doorway, gun drawn. He'd been here the whole time, one of the chairman's shadows. For a heartbeat, the old instinct paralyzed me. The conditioning ingrained over 8 months of terror slammed back into place. Freeze. Be invisible. Don't make eye contact. I saw the man who had dragged me by the hair into vans, who had laughed while I bled in the back seat, who had reduced my entire existence to a paycheck. He looked at the dying chairman, then at Gunwoo, and finally at me. His expression wasn't fear. It was annoyance. You, he sneered, stepping over a body to advance on me. You ruined everything. The chairman's deal. My retirement. All for a piece of disposable trash. He raised his weapon, aiming not at me, but at Gunwoo's unconscious form. I guess I'll salvage what I can. Something inside me fractured. The fear didn't vanish, but it crystallized into something cold and sharp. I looked at Gunwoo, dying because he refused to let me be disposable, and I realized I was done being a ghost. Ghosts didn't bleed. Ghosts didn't fight. But I did. I didn't think about the odds. I looked at the holster of the fallen guard 3 feet away. No, I whispered. Cole's finger tightened on the trigger. I dove. My hand closed around the guard's weapon just as Cole fired. The impact hit my shoulder like a sledgehammer, spinning me around, white-hot agony exploding through my nerves. The force slammed me against the concrete floor. My vision grayed, but I didn't let go of the gun. The weight of it felt heavy, foreign, and absolutely necessary. I rolled onto my back, raising the weapon with trembling hands. Cole was staring at me, shock replacing the annoyance. He hadn't expected the cargo to fight back. I locked eyes with him. I wanted him to see me. Not the victim in the rearview mirror. Not the investment. Me. I am not yours, I snarled. I pulled the trigger. The recoil jarred my injured shoulder, but I didn't stop. Crack. The first shot hit him in the chest, staggering him. Crack. The second hit him in the stomach. He doubled over, the look of arrogance dissolving into confusion. Crack. The third shot was for the nights I'd spent praying for death. It took him in the throat. Cole collapsed backward, his gun clattering uselessly across the floor. He choked, hands clawing at his neck, eyes wide and terrified as the silence of the bunker rushed back in. I lay there for a second, breathing hard, the smell of gunpowder stinging my nose. I watched the light fade from his eyes and felt a terrifying hollow peace settle in my chest. The gun dropped from my hands with a heavy thud. I looked at it like I'd never seen a weapon before, like someone else had just committed murder. Rachel. Gunwoo's voice pulled me back. The cabinet. Please. Right. Save him first. Process killing a man later. I ran to the yellow cabinet, ripping it open. Medical supplies spilled out. Bandages, sutures, medications. I grabbed everything labeled vitamin K, my med student brain cataloging automatically. Phytonadione, 10 milligrams per milliliter. IV administration for warfarin overdose. Need to calculate dosage based on. No time for calculations. I grabbed the largest vial, a syringe, and ran back to Gunwoo. His lips were blue now. His breathing shallow. Blood was pooling beneath him. Internal bleeding that I couldn't see but knew was happening. The warfarin had thinned his blood too much. He was hemorrhaging everywhere. I found a vein, thank God for clinical rotations, and pushed the vitamin K, fast. Too fast, probably. But he was dying and I couldn't wait for proper drip rates. Stay with me. I pressed my hands to his chest, feeling the weak flutter of his heart. Come on. Come on. Nothing changed. His pulse was weakening. Not enough. I needed more. I looked at the chairman's body, at the transfusion machine still running, still pulling Gunwoo's blood into a corpse. I ripped the tubes out, reversed them, started pushing blood back into Gunwoo from the collection bags. Rachel. June's voice was weak. You can't. That blood is contaminated. It's his blood, I snapped. It's been in these bags for less than 5 minutes. It's still viable. I prayed I was right. Prayed that the warfarin concentration would be lower now. Prayed that the vitamin K would work fast enough. Gunwoo's body convulsed. Once, twice. Then he gasped. A horrible, rattling sound. But he was breathing. His eyes opened. Unfocused. Confused. Rachel, I'm here. I pressed my forehead to his. I'm right here. Stay with me. Behind us, I heard June on the phone, calling for backup, for real medical help. The bunker's doors were opening. Gunwoo's men had finally breached the lockout. Armed figures poured in, sweeping the room. But I didn't move, didn't let go. I just held him, feeling his heartbeat strengthen, watching color return to his lips. He'd tried to die for me, and I'd just killed to save him. We were even now. Blood for blood. Life for life. 6 months later, Winter had returned to Grand Central Terminal. The clock above the information booth still gleamed brass and perfect. The vaulted ceiling still soared overhead, painted with constellations. The marble floors still shone under thousands of footsteps. But I wasn't scrubbing them anymore. I stood beneath the clock, watching the evening rush. Commuters flooded the terminal, purposeful, distracted, alive in the way people are when they don't know how close death walks beside them. I knew. I'd felt death's breath, had watched it circle the man beside me. The wool coat I wore whispered against my legs as I shifted. Cashmere, dark gray, tailored. The price tag would have fed the girl I used to be for a decade. Not probably. Definitely. My reflection in the brass directory showed someone I barely recognized. Healthy, strong, hair no longer lank but styled, skin glowing. The scar on my cheek was still visible. Would always be visible. But it looked different now. Not a brand. A mark of survival. You're thinking too loud. His voice came from behind me, close enough that I felt the words against my ear. I turned. Kim Gunwoo stood there, dark coat open over a charcoal suit. The winter wind had tousled his hair. A thin scar ran down his left arm, the only visible reminder of the warfarin poisoning. But I knew there were others. Internal scars. Places where his body had almost torn itself apart. Places I'd stitched back together with desperation and medical training and something that might have been love. I was thinking about the first time we stood here, I said. You were dying. So were you. I reached up, straightening his collar. An excuse to touch him. I always needed excuses. You just hid it better. His hand caught mine, thumb tracing the pulse point at my wrist. I'm not hiding anything anymore. It was true. The past 6 months had been reconstruction. Not just of his organization, though that had happened too. With the chairman's death leaving a power vacuum Gunwoo had filled completely. But reconstruction of ourselves. 2 broken people learning to fit together without cutting each other on the sharp edges. The hearing is tomorrow, I said quietly. Officer Cole's death. My testimony. Self-defense, they'd said. Justified. But I'd still killed a man. Still pulled a trigger and watched life leave his eyes. I'll be there. Gunwoo's free hand came up to cut my jaw, tilting my face toward his. Every moment. You won't face it alone. I know. And I did. That was the thing about us. We'd built something strange and violent and unbreakable. A foundation of blood and survival. What about the circle? Dismantled. His thumb traced the scar on my cheek. Not flinching. Not pitying. Just acknowledging. Dr. Yoon is facing trafficking charges. The facility has been seized. The other girls, his voice softened, are all in protective custody, safe, healing, free. Free. Such a simple word for something so complicated. I'd spent months in therapy, processing what had been done to me, processing what I'd done in response. The nightmares were less frequent now, the panic attacks manageable. I could breathe without checking over my shoulder. Most days. And medical school? Gunwoo asked. I smiled. I start next month. Johns Hopkins agreed to readmit me. Full scholarship. Apparently having a letter of recommendation from the psycho carries weight. I merely suggested they reconsider. His mouth quirked. Very politely. You threatened to donate so much money they'd have to name a building after me. Semantics. I laughed. The sound echoed in the terminal's vast space, and I saw heads turn, people recognizing us, the ghost and the reaper. The tabloids called us, the mob boss and the woman he'd killed his father to save. They didn't know the half of it. Gunwoo's expression grew serious. I need to tell you something. Tension coiled in my stomach. What? I'm trying to go legitimate. The organization. I'm transitioning it, cleaning up the operations. It'll take years, but... He paused. I don't want you to wake up one day and realize you've tied yourself to a criminal empire. Little late for that. I traced the tattoos visible above his collar. Besides, I knew what you were the moment you caught me. I chose you anyway. You chose survival. No. I met his eyes. I chose you. There's a difference. Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability breaking through the careful control. Rachel, I love you. The words came out steady. Sure, I know it's complicated. I know we're built on blood and trauma. I know a therapist would probably say this is unhealthy. But I don't care. I love you. He stared at me, silent. And for a moment, I thought I'd miscalculated. Thought maybe what we had was protection and gratitude, but not. Then he kissed me, not gentle, not careful. A claiming, a promise. His hands fisted in my coat, pulling me closer. And I tasted 6 months of restraint breaking, 6 months of dancing around what we both felt but were afraid to name. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed to mine. I fell in love with you in that bunker. When you refused to let me die. When you turned yourself into a doctor and a warrior and saved my life with nothing but stubbornness and medical training. His breath ghosted over my lips. You were magnificent, terrifying. Mine, yours, I agreed. Then softer. As long as you're mine, always. The clock above us chimed. 7 o'clock. The evening rush was thinning. Gunwoo stepped back, but his hand found mine, fingers interlacing. Come on! June made dinner. June cooks. June does everything. He guided me toward the exit. He also wanted me to tell you the final count came through. From the Circle's financial records. I tensed. How many? 47. His jaw clenched. 47 women over 15 years. Some survived, some didn't. We're still locating them. Still offering support. 47. 47 lives stolen. 47 stories like mine. But also, 47 reasons to keep fighting. I want to help, I said. When I finish school, I want to open a clinic, somewhere safe, for women who've been trafficked, who've been hurt, who need medical care without questions. Gunwoo stopped walking, looked at me with something that might have been awe. You want to become a doctor for the broken. I am the broken. I touched my scar. Who better to understand? He kissed me again, softer this time, reverent. I'll fund it, every dollar, every resource, whatever you need. We stepped out into December cold. The city stretched before us, bright and dangerous, and ours. A car waited at the curb, black, sleek, June at the wheel. As we slid into the back seat, Gunwoo's arm came around me, pulling me against his side. I fit there perfectly, like we'd been designed to hold each other. I have one question, I said as we pulled into traffic. Ask. Those words you said in the bunker, in Korean. What did they mean? He was quiet for a moment. Then, poisoned chalice. I was warning you what I'd done. And the other words? Earlier, when you were saying goodbye. His hand tightened on my shoulder. Those weren't goodbye. Then what were they? He turned, his dark eyes meeting mine. They were a promise. Wait for me. Because I knew. Even dying, even poisoned. I knew you wouldn't let me go. Tears pricked my eyes. You trusted me to save you. I trusted you to fight. That's who you are, Rachel. A fighter. He wiped a tear from my cheek with his thumb. The ghost who became a warrior. The vessel who broke her chains. The woman who killed to protect what's hers. I leaned into his touch. I'm not that strong. Yes, you are. He kissed my temple. You survived 8 months of torture. Survived the Circle. Survived me. You're stronger than any weapon I've ever carried. The car drove through Manhattan. Past Grand Central. Past the hospital where I'd start my residency. Past the tunnels where I'd hidden and suffered. Past all of it. Into something new. Where are we going? I asked. Gunwoo smiled. Home. Home. Not a penthouse. Not a fortress. Just a brownstone in Brooklyn he'd bought last month. Quiet. Normal. A place where the psycho and his partner could pretend to be ordinary people, even though we both knew we'd never be ordinary. We were blood and violence and survival. We were the ghost and the reaper. We were two broken pieces that had fused into something unbreakable. And as the city lights blurred past the window, his hand steady in mine, I realized something. I'd spent 8 months as a ghost, but he'd caught me when I fell. And now I stood, strong enough that he'd never have to fall alone. We were each other's salvation, and in this dark, violent world, that was the closest thing to grace we'd ever find.